Hello and welcome again to episode 26 of Cave Cat's Movie and TV Reviews. Once more with your favorite host, the one and only Cave Cat. For today's episode, we are going back to 1997 when ABC, fresh off of the boat from being acquired by Disney, had decided to make a 5-hour block consisting of various shows, most of which were produced by Disney. That block became known as Disney's One Saturday Morning, and it was a pretty innovative Saturday morning block for its time. With this block, 3 new Disney-produced shows were created and introduced to audiences the world over. They are Doug, Recess, and Pepper Ann. However, in the case of Doug, it wasn't exactly new per se, since it also aired on Nickelodeon around that time before it underwent a channel hop to ABC and was now produced by Disney. But anyway, it's time to get on to the real meat of this episode, since the show that I'm reviewing for today's episode is none other than Recess. To start off, Recess was created by 2 guys named Paul Germain and Joe Ansolabahir, or however you pronounce his name, the former actually having been one of the creators for Rugrats, which I previously did a review of. The show focuses on a group of 6 students named TJ Detweiler, Vince LaSalle, Spinelli, Mikey Blumberg, Gretchen Grundler, and Gus Griswold, who all attend 3rd Street Elementary School. And as the title of the show suggests, a lot of the episodes take place at recess, where the main characters get into all sorts of adventures and situations that mirror those of real life. The reason for this is because despite the fact that the main characters of the series are kids that go to school just like real-life kids, the kids of 3rd Street School somehow have their own hierarchy in government, akin to that of our government. Now for the main characters, we have TJ Detweiler, who is the leader of the main 6, with the penchants for coming up with plans to try and improve things for himself and for his friends. Though when it comes to doing schoolwork, he tends to be a bit of a slacker, even if there are times when he can exert himself in order to complete a project. Vince LaSalle is the number 2 to TJ, as well as the more athletic of the main group, albeit being rather prideful at times. But even in spite of this, he still proves himself to be a loyal and steadfast friend, not to mention that he's the only one in the main group who's African American. Spinelli is more or less the brute force of the group, despite being the shortest of the group, as well as being a girl. But she's more the tomboy of the main group. A few episodes reveal her first name to be Ashley, but she prefers not to go by that name, so as not to let everyone think that she's associated with the Ashleys, whom I'll talk about in a bit. Mikey Blumberg is the biggest and the most imposing member of the group, but he's also rather gentle and non-confrontational, as well as having a passion for poetry and singing, the latter due to his singing voice being provided by the late Robert Goulet, hilariously enough. Gretchen Grundler is the most intelligent of the main group, capable of formulating plans to help her friends, while also being the most knowledgeable about any form of science, even if her friends don't really understand her passion for science. And lastly, Gus Griswold is the nerdy new kid who is awkward and naive to the rules set on the playground at 3rd Street Elementary School, with it being explained that the reason for his moving is that he comes from a military family, with his father being an army major. But even though he comes across as being shy and meek, he can actually be assertive when push comes to shove. And as for the other characters, we have the school staff, such as the kids' teacher, Miss Grokey, who is greatly admired by her students due to her understanding nature, Miss Fenster, who serves as the playground monitor with a rather strict and authoritative demeanor, Principal Prickly, who is the principal of 3rd Street Elementary School with a no-nonsense attitude, even if he can be soft-hearted at times, and Hank the janitor, who makes it his job to clean up any messes that are left around the school, much like a real-life janitor. There are also other student characters such as King Bob, a 6th grader who acts as the monarch of the playground during recess and rules over the other students with an iron hand, but is also reasonable in some cases. The Ashleys, a quartet of Valley girls who all share the same name, though their last names go by the initials A, B, Q, and T, while also being rather sneaky and manipulative, as well as uttering their catchphrase "scandalous" whenever they're up to no good. The Diggers, a pair of boys who spend most of their time at recess digging holes. Swinger Girl, who likes to swing a lot on the swing set, with her ultimate goal being to be able to swing right over the swing set, but often fails at doing so. Guru Kid, who, as his name implies, acts as a spiritual guru and advisor to the other kids on the playground whenever they need advice. Hustler Kid, who acts like a stereotypical black market supplier, helping the kids getting various kid-friendly supplies for a good price. Menlo, who works as a school office aide with an affinity for organization. Upside Down Girl, who, as her name implies, likes to spend her time hanging upside down. The kindergartners, who act like stereotypical savages. And of course, there's also Randall Weems, who acts as Miss Finster's personal spy and lapdog, which earned him the reputation of being the residential playground snitch, and many other characters. And as for the show itself, it's actually lots of fun. To tell you the truth, I remember anticipating the show for quite a while when it was first announced, and when I got a chance to see it, I really liked it a lot. The concept of a group of elementary school students having their own government and bureaucracy similar to that of the US government is very creative, especially since it lampoons the ideas of minors having their own rights and their own society. I mean, there have been shows and movies that showed animals having their own world and society without humans being any wiser, with there being too many to name. But the idea of kids having their own society really makes it fun and exciting. I mean, sure, they would later do something similar with Cartoon Network's Codename Kids Next Door, but the only difference between this show and Codename Kids Next Door is that while the show has the kids occasionally cause trouble, Codename Kids Next Door focuses more on the kids fighting against adults in a parody of action films and spy dramas. The show was actually popular enough to instigate a Christmas special known as Miracle on 3rd Street, or also known as Yes, Mikey, Santa Does Shave, a theatrical film Recess School's Out, which I thought was pretty good for the most part, and two direct-to-video films, Recess All Grow Down and Recess Taking the 5th Grade. Not to mention that there was also an episode of Lilo and Stitch the series, where TJ and the gang, along with Miss Finster, go to Hawaii on a school vacation, at the same time that Lilo and Stitch have been trying to catch an experiment named Lax, who had the ability to shoot a ray that causes people and machines to stop working temporarily. That episode was especially different from the other crossover episodes that Lilo and Stitch the series did, being it featured characters from a One Saturday Morning show rather than a Disney Channel show, like when they did episodes featuring Kim Possible, American Dragon Jake Long, and the Proud Family, but it still worked, for the most part. But back to the actual Recess series itself. Like I said, I really enjoyed the show a lot when I was younger, and it still holds up pretty well, even rewatching a few episodes of the series. Another thing I really like about the series is that while each episode focuses on the characters actually getting into all sorts of adventures and escapades, they actually end up learning lessons from their experiences. For example, there was an episode where TJ and the gang find themselves to be the only students attending 3rd Street School due to the rest of the student body getting sick from food poisoning. And while TJ and the others enjoy having the entire school to themselves at first, eventually they gradually start to go mad from not having anybody else around. It really plays off of the whole be careful what you wish for lesson, much like in Twinkle the Dream Being, which I did a review of previously. The reason is because at the beginning of the episode, TJ wishes that he and the others would have the whole school to themselves due to it being too crowded, and end up getting their wish when everybody else ends up sick after eating fish tacos, but ultimately come to the realization that having the school to themselves is not as great as they thought it was at first. I have to admit that that was just the most realistic portrayal of isolation anxiety that I've ever seen in an animated kids show. Like I mentioned before in my Adventures in the Book of Virtues review, kids shows these days are too scared to actually try and tackle these sorts of real life lessons. I mean, you gotta hand it to previous animated kids shows like Fat Albert, Gargoyles, Adventures in the Book of Virtues, and even this show for covering a lot of dark subjects that a lot of other present day kids shows wouldn't touch with a 50-foot pole. I mean, think about it. Recess, along with other shows at the time like Doug, Pepper Ann, The Weekenders, and even Teacher's Pet, were released around the time that television networks were bolstered to have more educational material in the shows that were airing on Saturday mornings. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having educational material in some shows. Take a look at Animaniacs. But the key to having a good animated kids show is to make it both entertaining and thought provoking for the audience. When you have neither of these traits in any of your shows, then you have nothing. Heck, even modern kids shows like My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, The Lion Guard, and especially VeggieTales in the House had lessons in their episodes, or at least tried to have lessons in the case of VeggieTales in the House. But with Recess, at least the lessons they conveyed in most of its episodes were more subtle while still being rather obvious so that the audience would know what was going on. But now that that's all been said and done, I think it's obvious that I will give Recess 7 stars. There's never going to be another show like Recess, even if they did try to copy the formula with Detention, but I never saw that show for a good number of reasons. First of all, while both shows focused on a group of kids who got into all sorts of adventures, the latter show actually focuses on 8 kids instead of 6 who try to stay out of trouble to avoid getting detention. Second of all, that show aired on the Kids WB while Recess aired on ABC. And finally, I thought that the art style for Detention looked rather crude and atrocious. It's no wonder why I preferred Recess over that show. I really like the characters and the premise of Recess, even if it did have its ups and downs during its run. And as for its specials, I've seen Recess Schools Out a few times. I've not seen Miracle on 3rd Street, aka Yes, Mikey Santa Does Shave, Recess All Go Down, or Recess Taking the 5th Grade. And the whole Lilo and Stitch the series thing is just a horse of a different color. But I'm not going to let that get in the way of how much I enjoyed the series. So enough said. Anyway, that's a wrap for this episode of Cave Cat's movie and TV reviews. As I keep mentioning before, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel for more episodes or other videos that I might come up with. So until next time, later!